that the medical industry will provide you to take to treat the Hashimoto's?
Well, like I said, the good news for me is, at least so far, like what I'm worried about, part of what I'm worried about, I think these people are really trying to get me to that stage again. And then I would have to worry about, that kind of thing. But really, since then, since they knew that I got very suspicious that this diagnosis was like a bogus cover-up diagnosis, and it was really them, doing their stuff, then they backed off to the point where I did not have those kinds of symptoms anymore, and I literally did not have to be taking the steroids anymore. It's been, what's that now, since 2007 was the last I did, so it's been like 13 years. Basically, most of the time, from shortly after I started posting regularly publicly, and early on in that, this man approached me and gave me this heads up, and I started saying so publicly and talking with medical people about it as well. People I go to visit for doctor's office, what have you, and these people that did not want it publicized that they're them using non-consensual neurological weapons testing is causing people life-threatening inflammation in the brain. That seems to be what caused them to back off to where I haven't had it to that extent. But the way they've been, poisoning me with neurotoxic inhalants relentlessly for 2 years now, it's been very, very noticeable surge. It's not the first that they were doing it, 2 years ago. So, but 2 years ago, my first trip to Albany, seeking help from state government, that was October 2018. When I went there, and I was there for at least a couple months. So, because I came back maybe December, I might have been really early January. I was definitely there still in October and in November on that first trip. And so they just started very badly, assaulting me neurologically again with the neurotoxic inhalants. And it's been very conspicuous. And I thought they would have stopped by now, but they're very bold, and I guess partly because of the high shielding so far, people absolutely playing dead as far as law enforcement, unfortunately, when it comes to these people so far. I think a lot of it has to do with their using the hijacking of your communications, though. They're computer hackers to route your calls so that it's always one of them that will highly shield them. So I'm still working out, I'm still planning and working out ways that I plan to get around that, because I think it's about 50-50. That's kind of bad, but it's not, it's still 50-50. I'm willing to take that chance. I'm willing to take a 50-50 chance. I think somebody will ultimately help. I'm a persistent person. So, if I have to go 2 days, to get the 50-50 odds to work out 2 days in a row, make a trip, and, see who I get, I'll do that. Mm-hmm. But, the problem is when they're using the computer hackers and you call, and they're hijacking all your communications, then 100% of the time trying to make the phone call, you're going to get one of them.
So we discussed a little bit, you suspect that you were adopted into this program.
Oh, I wouldn't use the word adoption per se. I'm increasingly suspicious that the people whose names are on my birth certificate as my parents, my biological mother and father, are not. And I don't remember, except for 2 brief events, less than 1 hour each, that don't tell me the answer. I don't remember things as far as whether they're my parents. I don't remember things from before I was age 6. And they always lied to me and told me it was normal. And I only eventually ended up finding out, like by happenstance, that it's not. Because I was here a friend there, make reference to, when I was 3 or so and whatever. I'm like, hey, I started asking, I started noticing, and I started asking how many of my friends remember, like from at least age 3 or earlier. And basically pretty much everybody else does, but not me. So I realized they're lying about it, and then, I see, abnormal and, even better, nice relationships that people have with their children. They're proud of their children's accomplishments when they're doing well in school, things like that. They're staying out of trouble, and this kind of thing. My parents are busy trying to frame me and ganging up with, misogynistic, supremacist, semi-secret society, Nazi heritage people, whatever, trying to figure out how to enslave me and deplete all of my finances and my health and everything. I'm thinking, they might, I'm just thinking I'm very suspicious that they're not that. They're not my parents. And the timing is such, and the places involved, where they had the connections to, and some of the other people since, like in 2007, one of the files I played highlights from, they were planning to abduct me at gunpoint with someone from Guyana. And the paternal grandfather, so the father's father of the person believed to be my mother, who's a government contracted behavior modification intelligence psychiatrist. And so that's the category for black budget mind control operations is under behavior modification. So her grandfather was the Minister of Health and Housing for Finance, Minister of Health and Housing for Guyana during arrangements for Jonestown. So, and this program was done on my beautiful great aunt, his only daughter. And it resulted in her death. I've always felt that way. Somebody in the family might want to, argue about if that's the reason, what have you. But she was being badly treated. She was being non-therapeutically electroshocked. And, this was a woman. She was not doing anything illegal or crazy or anything. She was a very kind person. She was the kindest to me. And this is a reason I've always remembered and always been very upset and wanted to find out what's really happened. And I think in some ways it's helped to save me, because I've heard them talking about how usually they would have, gotten a really good course of grip on somebody by now, because I'm 49 years old now. So I'm really shocked that they haven't stopped trying, but they have heard them talk about, it's taking so long. They've not known somebody that they just trying, like the whole lifespan of the person from, at least age 6 to, I didn't hear them make reference to age 6, but from however long they had me from the beginning, and from childhood, and I'm now 49 years old, almost 50, and they don't have that course of control over me yet. They haven't brainwashed me to drive me out of my proper mind so that then they can do the programming, but they're still trying. It's very dangerous. And but I think a lot of it's because I was always worried, I was always concerned, I was always noticing, what's going on with my aunt, my great aunt, and other people that I would see them doing this to. And these things gave me a heads up when I would see them, earlier warnings that they were lining up to be trying to do that to me, and that's what they were trying to do. And I think, so otherwise I might not have known in time, and they probably might have gotten a course of, control over me by now.
Mm-hmm. We talked about the behavioral modification programs and, how it's really difficult for people to get help and resources when they're going through the targeting and these programs, because I think what tends to happen is that even when you have articulated and documented, as well as you have, the way that the mental health will work with the public it's very compartmentalized, I've noticed. And it kind of creates a barrier there to even address some of these issues, I think, at a very basic level, Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I think so.
It's almost as a, and I think too, when you try to explain this to people, they almost, use your own intelligence against you.
Yes, they're deliberately scripting and have so many people involved. People, if they haven't experienced it or witnessed it or participated in it or so, they wouldn't imagine that they have that many people involved and so many resources with nothing better to do with those resources because it's a taxpayer expense. Mm-hmm. So, the black budget funding and all, and they're not having to account to people because, classified. And so they're just carrying on like really badly behaved children in a lot of ways. They never matured into proper adulthood, but they're narcissistic and sociopathic, and they're dangerous, and they absolutely are showing that they need oversight.
Arrested development, right? I'm laughing.
I think so. It's bizarre. No matter how old they are, they have the mentality of if you ever saw that movie, The Bad Seed, they have the mentality of the little girl that was a sociopath from probably born that way.
Well, it's people will talk about narcissists and how narcissism is on the rise and but it's almost as if every one of them have like the same, like you said, they have the same script.
Oh yeah, they absolutely share scripts. That's apparently, I mean, they didn't say it's because of the scripts, but that the organized predators, when I was in Toronto, and they made reference to people from several countries, and including but not limited to Guyana, because they were waiting for some man from Guyana with a gun to come so they could grab me then, and it was going to be for the Monday. So I heard this, I believe it was the Thursday before. It was definitely before the Monday, thankfully, but I want to say it was the Thursday before, and so I made sure I was not there by Monday. I'm not going to be there if I hear they're getting ready to try to abduct me at gunpoint on the Monday. I'll not be there by the Monday. But I mean, they've kept me from being able to just settle down and be able to build, a normal, legitimate, peaceful life. Because you can't build your life professionally or personally or in any other way when they're carrying on like this. Always chasing you down, assaulting you neurologically, trying to frame you literally for anything. Like, I mean, all you have to do is go to a restaurant with them to eat dinner is one of the files that I realized we might not get to it today, because I think that was number 2. I was going to play this 3 in the set I have ready. So we might just be able to go over like number 1, but yeah, I went to a restaurant after work in Alabama with the people believed to be my mother and stepfather, and they turned that into a thing where I was almost framed up and hauled away under manufactured charges of driving under the influence of alcohol, even though they admitted, I recorded them, and in the recording they admitted that they know that I never drink alcohol in general, and I had not had no alcohol to drink that night, but they were still angling with people in their network. Some of them seem like they might be, if they were telling the truth, like they might be from the sheriff's department there, or they might have been psychological operations participants allowed to even, present as such. And because they're allowed to do way too much like that. They're allowed to pretend to be flight attendants in practice anyway. I've observed this, that they get to pretend to be flight attendants. They get to pretend to be hotel staff. They get to pretend to be restaurant staff. They probably get to pretend to be police officers, sheriff's officers, what have you. And so they were telling me, like they were getting ready to apparently, arrest me for, quote, driving under the influence of alcohol, and I had no alcohol to drink, and they knew this. It's in my file in my playlist on my YouTube channel called Setups Need to Stop to Let Me Relocate and Live Peacefully.
Wow. And these are not isolated incidences. This is actually a program that is starting to become more and more common, especially with the massive amount of corruption that I have covered in the administrative courts, the targeting, and the more that they seem to be implementing this sort of Orwellian, censorship and gaslighting in the mainstream media, giving conflicting, conflicting information regarding COVID-19. So we can really see. I mean, we can see the President of the United States being targeted in this manner. We can see we can also see it implemented on a very large scale in regards to the COVID-19 and the lockdown and so forth. I mean, these are all massive psychological operations.
I think that's very likely. I mean, I can't swear to 100%, but what I do think is that when people have realized the extent to which these people will lie and deceive and orchestrate these big shows to maneuver to get what they want, and that a lot of it is really not for the good of the public, then it's easy enough to believe it's certainly something they would do. Hopefully it's not something they are doing, but I'm very suspicious about that also. I think there's certain things we have to do to be like responsible and not antisocial anyway and stuff. So I always do wear a mask. I don't try to protest about wearing a mask or something to go outside of the room, but when I'm in my room, I try to, breathe as well as possible, especially given